We're gonna read on 15 probably because
This is, yes,
Okay.
210, sorry.
So it begins with questioning by Mr. Lundberg, for the record. How far, what's the distance between number 16 and number 2? Would you be able to estimate feet?
Oh, about 30, 40 feet maybe.
And how long after you saw this person, after you returned back, how long after you did that did the police call?
Objection, no objection.
5 or 10 minutes.
Did you tell the police that he had something in his hand?
No,
I'm sorry, was that yes?
no.
Where, can you describe what you saw in his hand?
I couldn't see. I could just see him doing something like this.
So you don't know what it was?
Probably right hand.
Do you know whether it was his right hand or left hand?
I would say right.
When the police arrived, did you go outside the apartment?
Not right away, no.
When did you go outside?
After I seen them chasing him down to the other side of the complex there, then I stepped outside on the front porch there.
Did you ever see the person that you had seen outside apartment 2? Had you ever seen him in police custody?
No,
Were you ever shown a group of photographs to identify this person?
no.
Did you ever get a good look at the fellow's face, or did you primarily see his backside when he's at the window?
He came running around this way and me and my girlfriend was standing in there and he came running around poolside.
So he ran by 16?
Yeah.
Okay, I have nothing further.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No,
This witness excused?
yes.
Thank you. You're excused. Please step down. Next witness, please.
Officer Cummins.
Okay.
I do.
Good morning, officer. Please.
Good morning, officer. Please take the stand. State your full name and spell the last for the record.
Yes, ma'am. Officer Bernie D. Cummins, Jr., Cummins.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Good morning. What do you do for a living?
I'm a police officer for the city of Tracy.
How long have you been employed there?
About 6.5 years.
Okay, were you on duty on August 27th of 97 at about 10 o'clock in the evening?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Did you receive a call to respond somewhere that evening?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
To where did you respond?
225 West Eaton, apartment number 2.
Okay, when you got there, did you make contact with the defendant, Jerry Rabin,
Yes, we did.
the gentleman in orange?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you first see him?
As we were walking up to the front of the apartment complex to the southwest breezeway, I was probably about 10 feet or so behind Officer Ryder, who was walking in front of me. We were responding to a burglary in progress call, and the description given was a black male adult wearing black or dark clothing. As we were walking up, I saw this individual.
This defendant that you're gesturing to?
Yes, was in a dark jacket and dark pants, walking away from an individual standing in the doorway, which was, as we passed by, I noticed it was apartment number 2.
Which individual was that? Have we met him yet?
Yes,
Which one?
Mr. Shafrey.
Were you in uniform at the time?
Yes, I was.
Did you say anything to the defendant?
I didn't, but Officer Ryder did.
What did Officer Ryder say?
He yelled, "Hey," about 3 times at him to stop.
Did Mr. Rabin respond?
No, ma'am.
What did he do?
He continued walking north along the walkway.
Did Officer Ryder ever stop Mr. Rabin?
Yes, ma'am. We got him to stop on the northwest inner complex area by the pool, and Officer Ryder asked Mr. Raybon what his name was, at which time he told us he was Daryl Folder.
What did Mr. Rabin do when you tried to speak with him?
He continued putting his hands in his pockets and sidestepping us. There was about 3 exits there and only 2 of us, so we were continually moving to block any type of fleeing.
Did he flee?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
Okay, did you tell him to stop and come back or anything?
We told him to stop. I grabbed a hold of him. I was only able to get a couple fingers on him. I got twisted in his jacket. I was trying to spin him around to put him down to the ground. This wasn't working. Officer Ryder grabbed a hold of him and seemed to be struggling with him. And at that time, Officer Ryder appeared to be losing his grip on him and told me to spray him with OC.
Did you spray him?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
What did he do next?
Officer Ryder, simultaneously as I sprayed him, let go so he wouldn't get sprayed. He let go and I hit the defendant probably right in this area with the OC.
Signifying the nose and the chest?
With about a 1-second burst, the suspect looked at me and then took off running southbound on the east side of the complex, interior of the complex.
Okay, did he continue to elude policemen that day?
Yes, he did. He continued southbound and through the complex and started turning west towards the southwest driveway, at which time a 3rd officer showed up and walked into the driveway. It was apparent that
Objection calls for some kind of opinion.
Sustained.
Was he eventually apprehended at some point?
Yes, he was. He was apprehended across the street west of this location, apartment location at another apartment complex.
What was he doing with his feet when he was eventually apprehended?
When I arrived on the scene there were about 3 or 4 officers there. They had him already handcuffed and Mr. Raybon's feet were stuck. There's a wrought iron fence around the pool. He stuck his feet around the bottom and made them rigid, basically not allowing the officer to pull him out.
He locked his feet under the rails of the pool so he couldn't be moved.
Yes.
Was he threatening any of the officers at that time?
Yes, he said he was going to kill Officer
Yes.
Yitzit and his family, and a couple of times he threatened me and said, "Wait till I get out. I'll kill you all."
Okay, who did he direct these other comments to besides Officer Yitzit?
Comments made toward Officer Zuniga.
And what exactly were those comments?
They were, "I'm going to kill you and your family in Hayward."
Okay, and that was to Officer Zuniga?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Thank you, nothing further.
Thank you. Cross.
Officer Cummins, did you place in your report the comment that Mr. Raven stated to Officer Zuniga?
No, sir, I didn't.
This is something that you got from Officer Zuniga.
It's what he related to me during that evening, yes.
What was your exact time of arrival at the 225 West Eaton complex?
The exact time I couldn't tell you. It was about 1 minute after our dispatch time. It would depend. It would depend on my watch, dispatch clock, or whose clock you're going by.
Do you know what time the dispatch was?
Could I refer to my report?
Sure.
According to my report, we were initially dispatched. Let me check here. Probably the call came in at 22:51, which is basically about the time we were dispatched, 10:51 p.m.
Okay, did you locate any sort of a tool on the person of Mr. Raven when he finally was taken into custody?
On his key ring, there was I'm thinking about 4-inch or 3-inch gold type of blade. I'm not really sure what it was. Had a semi-sharp point on it. Are you asking me to speculate?
Was this taken into evidence?
I believe it was booked in with his property. I wasn't the booking officer.
So you were not present when the statement was made by Mr. Raven to Officer Zuniga? Is that correct?
No, it's incorrect. Actually, he made a statement saying he was going to kill all of us, and Officer Zuniga was present during that statement.
Okay. When Mr. Raven made this statement, how many police officers were there?
Approximately 4 or 5.
And Mr. Raven was wrapped along the fence?
At that point, and he also made them, when we were walking up to the car and put him in the car, when we were putting him in the car, he looked at Officer Yizid in the eye and said he was going to kill him.
Was there ever any testing of Mr. Raven that evening for controlled substances?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
No, we couldn't even process him because we had to take him straight to county jail. I don't know if belligerence is a proper word, just because of his behavior and the constant threats. We did not feel that it would be viable for us to unhandcuff him to attempt to do any type of testing, fingerprinting there at our jail. We just wanted to get him over to county jail.
What is OC?
May I refer to my notes?
Sure.
Thank you. It's oleoresin capsicum,
Commonly referred to as pepper spray?
commonly referred to as pepper spray.
So Mr. Raven, you sprayed at least 2 times at him, is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Do you know whether an evidence tech came out to print the broken window at apartment 2?
No, I don't.
Thanks, I have nothing further.
Any redirect?
No?
This witness excused?
Yes?
Thank you. You're excused. You may step down. Do you have any further witnesses?
Yes, for purposes of 12022.1, I have a printout from the CJIS computer, and under evidence code 452.5, I'd ask the court to recognize this as a computerized printout. There are 2 cases on this printout for which the defendant was held to answer for separate felonies for which he's been on OR, TF 21556 and TF 22076. He was placed on OR for these felonies. He was held to answer on both of them, and both are now in Superior Court. And I'd like specifically TF 21556, the new number for that is SC 61687, and the new number for TF 22076 is now SC 61919. These are both in Superior Court right now, and I'd ask the court to take judicial notice of this printout. Secondly, I'd ask the court to take, not judicial, accept that under 452.5 of the evidence code. Secondly, to take judicial notice of the last file we just did a preliminary hearing on for the purpose of the 12022.1 enhancement that's being alleged.
And the last file number for the record is
TF 22-470. And the defendant was just held to answer on count 1 of that a few minutes ago.
On that last file ending 470, you're asking for judicial notice on, let's see, are you saying that he was on bail or is OR on that?
He was on, actually, he was OR'd. He was arraigned on 7/28/97 and he was in court. He was on his own recognizance at the time. He wasn't in custody. And on 8/13/97, the defendant did not show up for court. And it wasn't until September 2nd that he was actually brought to court in custody.
Okay, it looks like he would have had OR status at the time. People's printout then will be marked as People's 1. Has the defense seen that?
I'll show it to defense and that will be all.
Okay, Mr. Lundberg, do you have any objection to People's 1?
Yes, hearsay.
Okay, as to the hearsay objection, that's overruled. That will be admitted under Evidence Code Section 452.5. For purposes of this hearing, Mr. Lundberg, do you have any evidence to offer?
Not today.
And Ms. Israels, do you want to argue?
Submitted.
Mr. Lundberg, do you have any comment?
No, submitted.
As to count 1, the court finds reasonable and probable cause to believe defendant committed the felony charge in count 1, attempted burglary of a residential dwelling on 8/27/97. That would be the home of Annette Scardoza. Defendant is held to answer to Superior Court on that charge. The court finds reasonable and probable cause to believe that defendant did commit this felony while on bail or OR on 3 other matters, TF 021556A and TF 22470A, TF 022076A, and will be held to answer on those enhancements. Although actually, I don't think that people have to prove those in looking that up at this level. There's reasonable and probable cause as to finding that the defendant did commit a misdemeanor in count 2 of resisting, obstructing, or delaying a peace officer on 8/27/97. He'll be held to answer for that charge as well as the misdemeanor of obstructing or resisting an executive officer, Penal Code Section 69, on 8/27/97, and the defendant is held to answer to Superior Court on those. He's ordered present for arraignment on the information in Superior Court on the 29th of September, 8:30, and there is a stipulation for people's exhibits to be returned.
Thank you.
Mr. Lundberg, do you agree?
Yes.
And defense's exhibit was not admitted, so the defense can hang on to that if he wants to. Mr. Rabin also had a formal revocation hearing on that file TF 019730, but that was on for the basis of that violation was failure to pay restitution.
I'm not aware of that one.
Well, would you like to just trail that one with it's on, I believe it was reduced to a misdemeanor?
That would be fine.
The felony number, though, the clerk's telling me it was reduced to a misdemeanor, so that as well as the traffic, we can send that to trail in Superior Court. Is that your preference?
Yes.
And time continuing to be waived on that infraction traffic?
Be waived, yes.
Okay.
I think we probably just did this recently. Was that in this class? Sometimes I remember these things and who knows, it could be a year ago that we did it. I remember the officer's name, Cummings.
Is that trail or trial?
It's Trail.
It is trail?
Yeah.
We can send that to trail.
Follow the other
Oh, as
case.
a verb.
Follow another case.
As a verb, got it. That's 3940.
Okay.
Okay, we have a little more warm-up. I have 3 takes today, none of which have warm-up with them. So we're going to do all our warm-up, then we're going to do a CSR, which I will put on this same audio or video link. So if you wanted to go back, transcribe it, and then check it, you could access it on the video link. And I've got a few others like that up there already. And they have the designation of CSR after the date on them. That means there's a CSR test within the file. Okay, this we have to share both ways. I don't think we'll do this whole thing. It's just more warm up. So there is some medical in here. And I am plaintiff attorney, Mr. Donovan.
I am the witness.
I'm the court.
I am defense attorney Delaney.
Okay, we're going to read this in 15s.
What are we reading this in?
15s.
Okay.
Begins with a question by Delaney.
For the record. Now, he did not, there's no indication in these records that he had shortness of breath at rest. Is that correct?
No, there's no record of it here. No, sir.
And did you ask him if he had shortness of breath lying down?
As part of my history, I would have asked if he has to get up at night or if he's short of breath. Does he have to sleep on more than one pillow or two pillows?
Do you recollect whether you asked that question of him?
I would have asked that question.
Did you ask him that question?
Objection, argumentative.
Well, the question, doctor, is do you remember specifically asking it as contrasted with what you normally would have done in every case?
No, sir, I don't specifically recall asking him that question.
If you did, how would you indicate that you did ask the question and that the answer was in the negative?
I may have recorded that in my history, that he does not need two pillows for sleeping.
In what, if we were to look for that in these medical records, would we look for the term orthonia?
Yes, sir.
So you would say, one would say no orthopenia,
No orthopney.
and that's not present
Orthopnea.
here.
Yes,
Orthopnea.
orthopnea. No orthopnea.
And that's not present here.
No, sir.
Now, you are offering, as the heart surgeon, were you offering the heart surgery for the treatment of his chest pain,
No, sir.
which he reported to you?
No, sir.
You mean the presence or absence of chest pain had no relationship to why you were offering surgery?
I do not feel that is major indication for surgery.
What was his major indication for surgery?
Severe coronary disease and 2 previous myocardial infarctions, and the fact that his only open coronary vessel had high-grade stenosis.
All right, so the fact that he had symptoms of chest pain didn't play a role in your decision-making?
No, that it was not near the top of the list at all.
Now, is it a fair interpretation of this, your history and physical, that it was your opinion that Mr. Martin had failed all available medical treatment?
I felt that in view of his coronary anatomy, he was at risk for a major heart attack, potentially fatal heart attack in the future.
So you're saying that there was no alternative available medical treatment for his condition?
Objection, that's argumentative.
Objection sustained.
Thank you.
You can rephrase the question.
Did you consider that there was available other kinds of treatment other than surgery for his condition?
Well, one always considers non-operative treatment for any patient.
All right, now you considered it. Now, did you tell him what your considerations were?
We did, I should say, we have discussed the 2 potential modalities available at that time, which were continued medical therapy or surgery.
But again, you're indicating would rather than did.
Let's say did. I can't specifically recall this, but is a routine part of my evaluation and treatment of any patient as a candidate for surgery.
And you did not record that anywhere?
No, sir.
What medical treatment would you think was available if he was under maximal medical therapy?
I haven't stated that there was any further treatment available. I probably would have assumed that the cardiologist had tried beta blockers, but with his left ventricular dysfunction, they probably would have made him more symptomatic.
Again, you're assuming that?
I'm not sure. I don't recall. The cardiologist may have already told me that, and that my statement, maximal medical therapy, is based on the discussion I had with the cardiologist.
What cardiologist are you? What cardiologist are you talking about?
I would think Dr. Kardowski. It could have been Dr. Kawasaki, who had also seen the patient.
Okay, but as you recollect now, you don't know which one it was?
No, sir.
Or when?
Sometime between the time the patient underwent cardiac catheterization and the time I saw him or took him to surgery.
So you're indicating that you did see one of those or talk to one of those physicians?
Yes, sir.
Between the cardiac catheterization and the time you took him to surgery or the time you saw him in the office?
Either, I can't recollect completely, but it was probably before I actually saw him, but it very easily could have been that day or a few days after that.
Now, there's a statement further on in this 5th paragraph says cardiac output of 6.9 with a cardiac index 3.03, which seems impossible considering his previous study. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
Would you explain to the jury, please, what a cardiac output is?
Cardiac output is basically the amount of blood which the heart is able to put out in a minute's time, and it's designated in number of liters per minute. If you line up a bunch of milk bottles or liters of fluid, it's that number of liters that the heart is able to actually put out through what's called the aortic valve from the pump through the valve. It's that quantity.
And what is it about that study, that value, that seems impossible?
Looking at the ventriculogram, which is actually a movie film of the heart pumping, the contractile elements of the heart just didn't seem good enough to produce a cardiac. It didn't look like the pump was capable of putting out that much volume in the given length of time.
Are you saying that the measurement was incorrect?
No, sir, just that I questioned it taking the two parameters, one which is calculated, one's a visible method, and the other is based on computers or a relatively crude method of drawing a silhouette of the heart relaxed and when it's contracted.
Did you discuss this with the physicians who did the study?
There were several times during the 18 years or 19 years I've been in Stockton where the cardiac output coming from a catheter.
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't state it correctly. What I'm indicating is, did you speak with Dr. Kawasaki or Dr. Kardowski about the value 6.9 and the value 3.03?
I don't specifically recall speaking with them about that situation, no, sir.
Okay, but you've indicated that you did speak to one of the two doctors about this patient?
Yes, sir.
But you don't recall talking to them about this high cardiac index?
I don't recall discussing having issue about whether the major discussion would have dealt with left ventricle function, which was very, very apparent from his cardiac catheterization, which Dr. Kawasaki performed, and also from the MUGA scans.
Now, the cardiac output is the blood going out,
Yes.
bloodstream out. What has that got to do with the left ventriculum?
When the left ventricular is marked and scarred, the cardiac output goes down.
And in this instance,
The left ventricle did not look good, but the cardiac output looked excellent. So the two did not, I brought this up in the history and physical because the two did not seem to coincide.
but are you saying that the cardiac output was wrong?
I'm saying I'm questioning it. I didn't say it was wrong.
So he could have qualitatively something that's quite good from a physiological standpoint.
I'm not sure. That question may be understood by the doctor, but I'm having some problems. You want to rephrase?
Now,
Stop.
the
We'll
card-
rephrase another day. I'm getting dirty looks from the audience, so,
hard to read that fast.
yeah, I know.
Those words, yeah, you'll get-
Okay, so we're gonna now segue into a CSR exam, and I'm gonna leave it on this same thing. You know, also, those of you online, I wanted to tell you that our guest speaker the other day at our reception, Veronica Guerrero, was videotaped, and it is now on our media site under the video area. So she was pretty good. I think maybe you guys going to the CSR would find benefit in listening to it. So the video area of the media site, it's on that, the link is on that sheet that I called an invite and sent out to all of you. You'll find the pathway there. I'm sorry, what did you say, Beth?
I said, it's always good to listen to what other reporters say.
Oh, yeah. And she's someone that I think, you know, unfortunately, a lot of people can relate to. She took the CSR 7 times. And so she's doing well. Her first year of reporting has been very good to her. So this now is a CSR. And well, then you should definitely watch it. Tammy, sorry. Yeah, I think a lot of people probably know her. So you'll enjoy it. Anyway, this is from February of 2009. We have a minute and a half of warm up. And so I'm going to go ahead and just give the preview words now. And also we'll identify. We'll read the minute and a half, pause, and then there's a 12-minute test. Okay, so this is week 10, Wednesday, CSR from February of 2009. And this is just a minute and a half warm up. Oh, let me give you the preview words first. Mendez, Claire Walker, Tustin, Maple, Jackson, Daniel, Taser. I am Mr. White for the plaintiff.
I'm the witness.
I am the court.
I'm defense attorney Ms. Carter.
Okay, 1.5 minutes of warm up. We're reading the large marks and 15s and the court begins.
Okay, and it's the court for the record. This is a case of People versus Mendez. Officer, go ahead and have a seat on the witness stand, please.
Your Honor, just for clarification, I want to make sure that there are no other witnesses in the courtroom.
I don't believe there are.
All right.
Okay, no other witnesses are present. Officer, state and spell your name for the record.
Claire Walker, CLAIREWALKER.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Before we begin the hearing, I just want to add some language to count 1 to comport with the language of the penal code. I have submitted the corrected complaint.
We will make that correction in the file then.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I have written that in and I will sign it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Counsel, waive arraignment on the amended complaint.
Yes, Your Honor. Enter plea of not guilty.
Waive reading and advisement.
Yes.
Ready to proceed?
Yes. Thank you.
Officer Walker, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you tell the court where you are employed, please?
Yes, sir. I am employed as a police officer with the Tustin Police Department.
How long have you been a police officer with the department?
Over 7 years.
I would like to ask you about an investigation you were involved with on November 17, 2007, around 2:40 a.m. Did something catch your attention as you were on patrol that night?
Yes.
Describe what it was that you saw, please.
My partner and I were driving eastbound on Maple in our patrol car when we saw another car driving south on Jackson. The vehicle began honking its horn at us. I saw the female driver point down the street on Maple where I saw a male subject running south.
Please tell me you
Okay,
guys.
wait, we're gonna kind of restart here, regroup. Okay, so now this will be 12 minutes, so you still have a 2-minute lead. Okay, and we'll re-identify. I am Mr. White for the plaintiff.
I am the witness.
I am the court.
I am defense attorney Ms. Carter.
Mr.
Yes.
We're starting on page 4, right?
Yeah, page 4, line 2, Mr. White begins.
Oh, I thought we were doing one
No,
up again.
page 4, line 2. On the record. When you saw him running, did you take steps to see who that person was?
Yes.
Did you ever have contact with that man?
Yes, I did.
Did you see that person as anyone that you recognize in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you point out for the record where that person is seated and what he is wearing, please?
He is seated to my left wearing the jumpsuit.
May the record reflect she has identified the defendant, Your Honor?
The witness has identified the defendant, Mr. Mendez.
When you contacted the defendant, did the female who was in the car that you saw, did she come to your location after that?
Yes, she did.
And did she tell you anything regarding the defendant that you had contacted there?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
She told me that she was in her bedroom watching television when she heard her window being slid open. She then saw Mr. Mendez stick his head through the window and look around. He then looked directly at her.
Your Honor, I object to the characterization that the witness saw my client as lacks foundation and calls for speculation. Move to strike that portion of the answer.
Sustained.
Did the witness identify the person that she told you had put his head inside the window of her bedroom?
Yes.
Same objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Did she identify the same person that you have already identified as the defendant?
Yes, she did.
Where she saw the man in her window, was it a house or apartment that she lived in?
It is a house. She was visiting there for the weekend.
Okay, who was she visiting?
She was staying with her uncle.
Did she say if the window was open or closed that evening?
She told me that it was closed and secured.
All right, you testified that the window was slid open. Is it the type of window that slides from side to side?
Yes, it does.
Did she report anything in regard to how the window could be opened if it was secured?
Yes, she said.
Objection, lacks foundation, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
She explained that all a person needed to do was push the window open.
Now, she said while she was in the bedroom, the individual you have identified as the defendant stuck his head all the way in,
Yes, he did.
and she made eye contact with him in the bedroom.
Correct.
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
After they made eye contact, what did she do at that point?
She screamed. The defendant asked what was happening and then immediately fled from the residence.
Okay, now, after she screamed or yelled, what did she immediately do thereafter?
At that point, she got up from the bed, went to her uncle's bedroom, and told him what had just happened. They both walked outside and saw the defendant running down the sidewalk.
Did she say whether or not she knew the defendant prior to him sticking his head inside of her window?
That was the first time she had seen him.
Did she say whether or not she gave him any permission to enter the residence?
She never had given him permission.
All right, she got her uncle, and then what did they do after that time?
After she woke up her uncle, they ran outside and got into her vehicle. They began to drive around looking for the defendant. They lost him somewhere between the residence at Maple. They made a turn on Maple. They then found him again walking on Jackson.
Okay, was that the point in time when they saw you, or did they see you later?
That was much later.
Okay, did you also interview the uncle?
Yes, I did.
What is his first name?
It is Daniel.
Did he identify to you anybody whom he had been chasing?
Yes.
Okay, who did he identify?
Mr. Mendez, the defendant.
Did he tell you if at any time during the chase he had any contact with the defendant?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did he say occurred during that initial contact?
The uncle approached Mendez and asked him why he broke into the residence. Mendez told him that he was drunk and lost.
What happened then?
The victim's uncle told him that he was going to call the police. The defendant ran away and he was yelling that they were not going to catch him.
Your Honor, I object to that testimony as calls for double hearsay. I move to strike anything that the witness is saying that my client said.
Overruled.
After the defendant said nothing would catch him, what did Daniel do at that point?
That's when they got into their vehicle and that's when they observed our police unit.
That's when your contact began?
Yes.
Did Daniel say whether or not he knew the defendant prior to this night?
He had never seen him before.
Did he say whether or not he gave the defendant permission to enter his residence?
He told me he never had given him permission.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Cross-examine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, what time of night did the woman in the bedroom first hear anything with her window?
The call came out at 2:40 a.m. She said it was several minutes before that.
Okay, so in the middle of the night, early morning?
Correct?
All right, now she reported she was in her bed watching TV, is that right?
Yes.
Do you recall the layout of the bedroom she was sleeping in?
Yes, somewhat.
We have a diagram here. Does that look familiar to you?
Yes, that's her bedroom.
Counsel, what exhibit are you showing the witness?
I am showing the exhibit previously marked as 13.
Okay.
This is the bedroom, but I believe the doorway should be on this side.
When you say the doorway, that's the door to the hallway or the interior of the apartment?
That's correct. I believe this was a hallway.
And you see the furniture drawn on the diagram, correct?
Yes, the bed would be in this position of the bedroom. The TV was on a table or something against this wall here.
Now, this woman told you that she was just staying the night there, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, she was visiting.
Was she from another state? Where was she visiting from?
I believe she possibly resides in another city in Riverside County.
So she was only there for the evening?
The night or the weekend, I don't recall.
Did she tell you how often she visited her uncle?
I don't recall asking.
Did she tell you how many times she had stayed in that bedroom previously?
I didn't ask her that question.
Did she discuss what she did immediately before she went to bed?
No.
And did she tell you whether or not she remembered opening or closing the window that night?
The only thing she told me was that the window was closed. I didn't ask her if she had opened it earlier in the day
How did she know the window was closed?
because she explained that she heard it being slid open. Before she went to bed, she observed that it was closed.
Okay. She actually inspected the window before she retired to bed?
That's correct.
All right. And that's what she told you?
Correct.
Now, did she tell you what she was watching on television that evening?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
No.
Okay. Now, the TV was on when this person allegedly struck their head through the window?
She told me she was watching television.
All right. Were there any lights on in the bedroom?
I did not ask her.
What size television was she watching?
I don't recall.
Did you observe the television set?
Yes.
Can you give an estimate of the size that you believe it was?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Overruled.
I don't remember.
All right. Now, she reported that she heard the window slide open. Is that correct?
Yes.
What did she do when she heard the window slide open?
She turned to the direction of the window.
Okay. Now, you said she turned to the direction of the window. How was she positioned in the bed?
She was lying down. Her head was near the west wall, her feet pointing towards the east.
All right. Was she facing east before the window was slid open?
Towards the TV.
Okay, let me ask you this. Is it possible that she could have been laying on her side and not really facing east?
Objection, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
She told me she was lying on her back.
Okay, I guess your testimony here today is that she had to turn her head in order to see the person whose head was in the window. Is that correct?
Objection misstates the testimony.
Sustained.
I'm asking you. If I have misspoken, please clarify.
Can you repeat it again?
Your testimony is that she had to turn her head to see the person coming through the window. Is that your testimony?
She heard the window slide open. That's when her attention was drawn to that direction. She saw the defendant stick his head inside the bedroom.
She had to turn her head to see that. Is that correct?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained. Next question, please.
Did she tell you how long she had been in bed?
No,
Does she wear any type of corrective lenses?
I don't know.
Okay, did you ask her that?
No,
How old is this woman?
I would have to look at my report.
You may look at your report to refresh your recollection.
37 years old.
Do you see the furniture depicted on the diagram?
There were other items, but I don't recall.
Was there any furniture in front of the window?
I don't recall seeing anything.
Were there curtains on the window or anything like a window covering?
I believe there were curtains, but I am not sure.
All right. And did she tell you whether those curtains were open or not when she went to bed?
No,
She didn't tell you?
no, she did not.
Did she give a description of that individual that was at the window?
Yes.
All right. What description did she give you?
Well, she told me it was Mr. Mendez.
Did she give a description of the individual that poked his head through the window?
All she said was that it was a male Hispanic.
She didn't give any information in terms of hairstyle, facial features, or anything like that?
No,
Okay. And you never asked her that?
no, she already identified your client.
Now, when she identified my client, was he in custody at that point?
Well, we were chasing him and they were directly behind us. They were present when we took him into custody.
Now, was that individual running or walking?
Objection vague as to time.
Sustained.
Well, this woman and her uncle walked outside of their house. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. And once they got outside, they said they saw a person. Isn't that right?
correct.
What was that person doing at that moment when they walked outside?
I don't recall who said it, but one of them told me he was walking swiftly.
Okay, I believe your testimony was that the uncle told you my client was very drunk that night. Is that correct?
He appeared to be drunk, yes.
And he also told you that my client was drunk and looked lost. Is that correct?
Objection misstates the testimony.
Sustained.
Now, were you in a marked patrol unit while you were chasing my client?
Yes,
You were in uniform?
definitely.
All right. I presume you ordered him to stop?
Yes,
And did he?
he stopped, yes.
Did you have to draw your weapon at all?
Objection relevance.
Overruled.
I don't remember if I drew my firearm or my taser.
Okay, well, you drew a weapon of some sort?
Yes,
All right. You didn't have to shoot the taser. Is that right?
no,
Okay, now I presume you ordered him to the pavement.
Objection relevance.
Overruled.
yes,
Okay. Did he immediately comply?
no.
All right. And when he did not comply, what did you have to do?
Objection relevance.
Overruled.
Go ahead, you can answer.
After we ordered him in both Spanish and English, we had to push him down to the pavement.
Okay, when you say push him down, did you tackle him?
Definitely not.
Did you handcuff him?
Yes,
Once he was handcuffed, did you notice anything about his condition?
other than sweaty and breathing hard at that time, no.
Did you eventually notice the odor of alcohol?
Yes.
How quickly did you notice it with him?
It was several minutes later that I noticed the odor because we drove back to the residence.
Your Honor, I would like to make a motion out of the presence of the jury.
Is that something we can do at the break?
Yes, I just wanted the record to reflect that now.
That's fine. Redirect.
Officer, let me ask you some questions about that. Did you notice the smell of alcohol, or was it your partner who noticed it first?
I don't know if my partner noticed it prior to that.
So the two of you never talked about his level of intoxication?
Not at that moment.
How would you describe the defendant's demeanor once you noticed either the smell of alcohol or the objective signs of him drinking?
Watery eyes, slurred speech.
And the odor of alcohol?
Yes, that's correct.
At any point after you got him in the back of the car, but before you get him to the station, was he ever standing outside or anything?
I don't believe so.
He was only seated in the back of the vehicle?
Yes.
What was his demeanor while he was seated in the back of the police vehicle, if you recall?
I believe he was quiet.
Once you got back to the residence, did you then do anything with the victim and her uncle?
I had them show me the bedroom.
Did they identify the defendant while he was in the back of your patrol car?
No, they had already identified him earlier.
Okay, I'm going to end this practice portion, and then we'll do our last two takes on another one.